Hi, welcome to Scales and Beyond. Today we're going to be talking about the keys of B flat major and G minor. Before we get started, you want to get a couple pieces of paper. You want to get your packet that says major and minor scales and the family of chords. This is a 4-page packet, so hopefully you stapled your papers together. Staple them together, keep them together, because we're going to talk about them a lot. It's best to keep them all together. What you want to do when you get this is you want to turn to page 4. Page 4, for your last page. Scroll on down to B flat major scale, and then we're going to be talking about that information. The other piece of paper that you want to get is the grid scale pattern for the key of B flat or G major. G minor. Keep in mind, it's very important that it says B flat major or G minor. Okay, so they were both on the same page and we're talking about the same scale pattern and the same family of chords. So go ahead, pause the tutorial, go get your information, and then come on back. We'll get started in about a second. Okay, so I guess you got your music and your instructional paperwork. Keep in mind, we will not be playing the ukulele today. We're going to be taking notes on this lecture. So you don't have to bring it out. Hopefully you got something to write with, pen, pencil, maybe a highlighter. So on these two pieces of paper over here, this one and this one, okay? So this is once again, the major and minor scales and the family of chords, okay? I'm gonna just turn to page number 4, which is the last page in the packet. Scroll on down, you got B flat right there. And the other paper, okay? So these two papers, what you wanna be doing is you wanna be taking notes on them, okay? Taking notes on this to help you understand it, taking notes on this. Very important that on this particular paper, you have some information down here, which is kind of like this information. I'll discuss that in a second. What you want to do is, as I'm doing the lecture, is to take notes on this. You get a lot of space down here. Take whatever notes that you can to help you to understand this concept, especially if you have not had any previous music education or knowledge in music theory. We do recommend that you take our courses leading up to this course, so that way you have a good foundation of music theory and understanding the concept of music. The information that's down here and also on the other paper is basically this, and I'll explain it to you with one exception. I added the G minor family of chords, so when we come to that section, you definitely want to write that down. Take note on that somewhere so you can keep that in mind. Okay, let's start from the top. We're talking about the keys of B major and G minor, the relative minor. Excuse me, B flat major and G minor. Okay, so here is the treble clef. You got two flats in the key of B flat and E flat. That makes up the key signature for B flat major, also G minor. And then you have the notes on your treble clef, the music, symbolizing the scale. And then you have the notes that match up with it, correspond to that, so you can see the lettering for that. Very important to notate that anytime you're playing a B note or E note, they're flats. So that's going to be a B flat and an E flat. So yeah, the signature lets you know that every time you play a B note and an E note, you have to make it a flat. So it turns into a B flat and an E flat. Okay? They're not going to write it on every line or every space that requires that. You just have to remember that. Okay, now on this diagram, I have the notes lined up and corresponding so it's easier to see. On your music sheet, for instance, over here, it doesn't really line up. So if you need to make some adjustment so that you can better see it, please do so. So notice that as we see the note on the staff, here's the B flat, here's the C, D, E flat, F, G, and back to B flat. So it all kinds of it kind of lines up so you can see it better. Next we have the chords and the key. So in other words, we're talking about B major, G minor. So this is the B flat major scale, okay? And we're talking about the family chords in B flat major and G minor, B flat major and G minor. We're going to start with the family of chords in B flat major. And if you go along over here, you can see all the chords: B flat, C minor, D minor, E flat, F7, G minor, A diminished, and B flat. By the way, if it appears to be, if the presentation appears to be a little small, what you want to do is you want to look down to the bottom right of this tutorial of your screen. So look down at the bottom right of the screen, and then you see these little boxes. They look like, I don't know, like a television screen or something. Just kind of play with them, see which one enlarges them. So in other words, I think it's the largest square on the bottom right of this tutorial. Click on that square, and this whole presentation will become full screen, and you'll be able to see everything a lot clearer, and everything becomes a lot larger. Okay, so these are the family of chords for the key of B major, and then underneath them is the Roman numeral name for the family of chords. You got the Roman numeral 1 symbolizing major because it's large. The small ones, 2 and 3, are minors. Large again is a major chord. Major 5/7 chord, dominant 7. These are names that you might come across. Minor 6, which is the G minor 6. G minor, it's a minor 6 because it's small. Finally, we got the 7th chord, diminish. Don't concern yourself too much with that. Just know that it's part of the family of chords, and they exist in the family. And then you eventually come back to the 1 chord again. Okay, so one thing about the family of chords for the Roman numerals, right down here, that is a generic way of talking about the family of chords. The lettering, in other words, B flat, C minor, D minor, etc., is the precise way or the exact way of symbolizing the family of chords for B flat major. However, I think that if you can kind of grasp the concept of the Roman numerals, it's a lot better, because you can talk about whatever key you want, and you have to just remember that when you're using this terminology, like in other words, the 1 chord, the 4 chord, the 5/7 chord, whatever chord you're talking about, the only thing you got to remember is the key that you're talking about, so that you can remember that you're staying with the right chords and the right key. But it is kind of a better generic way of communicating in music. Okay, moving on down. So these last 2 lines right here, the G minor, and then the little minor 1. Okay, what you want to do is you want to copy that down, because that's not on your music sheet. In fact, it's on this paper right here. That's very important, that we're going to be using in the upcoming tutorial, where we show you how to play the scales, how, where, and when to apply them. It's a good idea to have these 2 lines written down on your notes. Now, one thing interesting about the B flat major scale and family chords and the relative minor, G minor, is that these 2 keys are relatively popular in ukulele playing. Okay, now it's not so much at the beginning stages, the beginning learning stages, but once you get an idea of like what chords and how to play chords, and get an idea of music a little bit, ukulele players kind of like this key quite a bit, because it shows more versatility. So that's why I wrote out both keys in this song, B flat and G minor. Okay, so pause the tutorial, write out these two lines, and then we'll get started in about a second. Okay, so I'm assuming that you wrote it down, and then you can start making notations to them. Before we talk about these two lines, we just want to talk about the B flat major family of chords, both Roman numeral and the lettering for the family of chords. Now it's very important, whatever key you're playing in, is to locate your 1, 4, and 5. 1, 4, and 5. In other words, what is the 1, 4, and 5? So for example, in B flat, the 1 is B flat, the 4 is a E flat, the 5, 7, or 5 is F7. It's important that you know that in every key that you're going to play in, because you're basically playing the scales around those chords. You're playing the scales that go with those chords. It's also good to know the other chords like the C minor, D minor, the G minor. So that's important too. So in the G minor family of chords, it's important to know your 1, your 4, and your 5. Okay, but right now we're just talking about the B flat major. Okay, so just to let you know, we're talking in this lecture. We're talking about B flat and G minor. So you know, you're in the key of B flat major, and you want to find your relative minor, or your relative minor key. The way to do that is two ways. You can look for the 6th note in the scale, the 6th note in the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's a G, and that's going to be a relative minor, which is your G minor. Okay, that's how you find your relative minor key. The other way is to look for your 6th chord in the family of chords. The 6th chord in the family of chords. So here's the 1, B flat major, and we're looking for the relative minor. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the 6th chord, the 6th minor chord, is your relative minor. That is how you find the relative minor when you are playing. So for instance, let's say you're playing in the key of B flat, and then you want to switch to a G minor tonality. You want to switch to the G minor sound when you're playing. You got to remember, to get there, you got to think of the 6th minor chord, and that's how you get there. And that's how you kind of fluctuate your scale too, which we'll show you later on. Okay, so let's move on to the next two lines down at the bottom here. The family of chords for G minor. Okay, so you got G minor, A diminished, B flat, C minor. Here we got a parenthesis, two chords, D7 and D minor. I'll talk about that in a second. E flat, F, and then back to G minor. Underneath them you have your Roman numerals symbolizing the family of chords in the name of Roman numerals. Now, they both follow a numerical series, okay, or system. So in other words, you got to go 1, 2, 3, 4. It follows that order. Same thing with the minor. It goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So you can see that it follows that numerical system in order. Just some of the names are changing. But what I mean by changing is that they may look different here, but technically they're not. Because in the key of G minor, which is your relative minor, the 6th chord, it stays a minor. Okay? So you basically keep the name of the chord, the positioning and number changes. So over here, you have a diminished 7, A diminished. But when we move it to the second position, number 2, 1, 2, second position, it remains as a diminished, but it is now a 2 diminished, 2 chord diminished. And same idea when you move on. The next chord is a B flat. It's a B flat, B flat. The large Roman numeral symbolizes major chord. That's why it's a large 3. It's a large 3. It's a major 3 chord. Next is the 4 chord is a minor chord. And see over there, it's a minor chord. You got to keep that same name, C minor. You bring it on down to the next key, C minor, C minor. Keep the name, C minor. The number just changes because it follows into a different sequence. It follows into the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. C minor. Okay, now, here's where you want to take some notes. 5/7 slash minor. D7 slash D minor. 5/7 slash 5 minor. Okay, now, on the 5 chord, you have the option of playing a 5/7 or a 5 minor. Okay. Now I know I said that in the previous tutorials, like I think it was the first couple of tutorials, I said you got to think of changing it to the 5/7, and that is because a majority of the time your 5 chord is always going to be a 5/7 chord. However, technically in music you have the option of playing a 5/7 or a minor, so you have the option in this particular key to play a D7 or a D minor. It's up to you. It's not too often that you're going to play a minor chord, or in this key a D minor. It's probably more likely you're going to play a D7 or a 5/7. However, now we need to start being aware that you do have that option. But once again, a majority of the time it's going to be a 5/7. Okay? And then we move on, and you have your major 6. That's a E flat major. So E flat major 6. And then your F, number 7. That's a major. See how it's a large Roman numeral? So that's a F major chord. Okay. So it's important that you try to understand these concepts. Okay. We do recommend that you take our courses before getting up to this point. If you understand music theory, this should be no problem. However, if you don't, there's 2 options you can do. You can look for patterns. And I'll explain that in a second. Or you can take our courses that lead up to this. For instance, go to the website, ukulelelessons.com. Go to the website, look up the courses, and then what the level of ukulele skill that you're at. You just kind of look around through the information, read up on it, and see where you fall in that you can pick up on. For instance, if you're not a beginner, then you probably don't have to take the very first beginning course. However, if you fall in the category of a beginner, you may want to think about that. Should I take the very first course? Because even from there, we start teaching the basic idea of music theory, and it just kind of builds on the different courses, so that by the time you get here, it basically should be no problem. In other words, this is the crash course of what you should already have learned in 4 courses, and we're giving it to you all in a few minutes. So once again, if you need to go to the website, just remember www.buenoukulelelessons.com. Go to the website, check it out. If you want to go that route, it's perfectly fine. We recommend you taking the courses in conjunction with this course so that you can understand it better. The other alternative of learning it is that you have to look for patterns, and you have to understand the patterns. So for instance, the pattern here is that you have the scale, you have the notes of the scale, and they all kind of line up with the lettering. So if we just take the idea of the concept of the lettering, for instance, the lettering for the major scale for B flat major, B flat, B flat. So you see how the note B flat, note B flat, first chord in the family chords is B flat. Now we're just going to take the letters, just the letters. C, C, D, D, E flat, F, 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 G, 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 A, back to B flat, B flat, B flat. So you can see there's some kind of pattern there. You just have to start associating the scale name, the family of chords, how they fall in with the Roman numeral system. Then know that when you go to find the relative minor, you got to go to the 6th chord, and that becomes the 1 chord, 1 minor chord in the key of G minor. See, these are the kind of patterns you're going to have to start associating with. And in the courses, we try to review them so that you can get a grasp of them. And once again, like we said, hopefully you're taking a lot of notes, and you're watching this tutorial multiple times, because it's not easy if you don't have the background in this. And it's really going to help you when you're playing these scales, these scale patterns on the ukulele, because these scale patterns go with these chords. Okay, so whatever you're playing, if these chords are not in there somewhere, and when you're playing the scale patterns, it may sound unusual. They're gonna sound the best with these chord patterns. And this is where you have to gain the concept of what the family of chords are in conjunction with the scale that we're using. Okay, with that being said, please, if it wasn't clear to you, feel free to watch the tutorial several times. And you want to make sure that you take your notes on these papers over here, especially this one. And then once you become comfortable and you're ready to move on to the next lesson, we shall see you there.